Welcome everyone to our webinar for Club Coaches. I'm Vicki Nam. I am the Program Quality Director for District 10 for this Toastmasters year 2017-2018. Our webinar is called Coaching Tips, Let's Be Distinguished. We have a very special group of panelists who will share with you their tips for successful club coaching. But before we get started, I'd like to thank our webinar host, Ace Gayhart. We had a little bit of technical difficulty, Ace, but we got through it, and thank you very much, Ace, for providing the webinar services for today's session. I'd now like to introduce our panelists. First up, we have Region 6 Advisor and Distinguished Toastmaster Heather Lane. Following Heather will be our Central Division Director and Distinguished Toastmaster Sravanti Valampati. Now, we may need to move things around a little bit if Sravanti comes late. Then we'll hear from past District Governor and Distinguished Toastmaster Debbie Curtis. And then finally, our District Director and Distinguished Toastmaster Tim Judah will share some thoughts of his about coaching with us. So let's begin with Heather. Heather is going to be telling us about club coaching in a nutshell.
Great. Thanks everyone for being on the call. Since I have 10 minutes, I may go quickly. If I go too quickly, please let me know. This is really a story of how I coached the club to distinguished status. When I was the area governor, I visited and the club was in trouble. There were only 4 members attending. So the club requested help. I let the district know and they asked me if I would coach them. So I agreed to do that. They were ready for change and they were committed because they asked for help and they said, hey, we want to get better. And that was the most important thing. I figured, okay, I can help you. I agreed to help. And I saw how much they wanted it. So I was going to do anything I could do to help them. As a result, I started looking for resources. How best can I help them? They really wanted to be distinguished. They liked the idea of being distinguished, so they said, maybe we can just reach distinguished within the year. So I had to talk with some other people in my district and did some research on the TI website and found Moments of Truth. Now, after that, I always consider Moments of Truth a recipe for success, because if you follow it, you will do better. I don't know if all of you know what Moments of Truth is. I hope you do, but I'll very quickly give you the little points on Moments of Truth. First impressions, how the guests see you when they enter the club. Do you do member orientation? Is there fellowship and variety and communication? Are people excited at the club and the guests greeted warmly? And then your program. How well is your program and meeting organization doing? And of course, membership strength is always important. People tend to attend the larger clubs more so than the smaller clubs. And the other thing then is, are you achieving? How is the club doing? People like to know that the club is distinguished. So with those moments of truth, we decided on a strategy with the club. After we decided how we were going to go about it, we put each standard in place. And one by one, we got buy-in on how things would work. We started out, of course, with welcoming our guests, having a guest book, having name badges, the first thing when people join, or at least visit. And we went step by step through Moments of Truth. Once Moments of Truth was in place, we checked to see if it was working. Were more people attending? Were we keeping up with the plan? And made any adjustments along the way. And then finally, we found that things were working well and we could keep adding more until we were distinguished. That was our sweet success. And the reward was really that we were distinguished. So we celebrated being distinguished. And after that, I joined the club, and I'm still a member of that club today, and we repeat Moments of Truth every year. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the kind of club that is. It's a club that is relatively near the university. We tend to get a lot of members that are working towards a certain goal. And after they reach that goal, they tend to drop out. And there's nothing more you can really say if you've got a grad student that says, I'm here to work on my thesis, I want to get better, and then they move away, they get a job and they move away. So the turnover with that club is still to this day very high. So we have to do Moments of Truth again and again and again. And each time we're able to build back up. Sometimes we can get to distinguished and sometimes we can't. So that is my story about how it worked. I know that's very quick what I just did. I think I took about 6 minutes there. And if you have any questions, I can go into more detail.
All right. Thank you, Heather. Ace, if anyone has questions, is it possible for them to raise their hand or ask questions? What do you recommend?
Sure. So the best way is to use the question and answer window where you can type in your questions, and you can do this as the presentation goes. You can also hold up your hand, or you can also chat in the chat window.
All right, great. So do we have any questions at the moment, Ace?
No questions currently.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a favor, Ace. Can you advance to Debbie Curtis's section? We'll bring Sravanti in at the end. She's having a little bit of trouble logging in. If maybe you can bring us to Debbie's section and then help Sravanti get on the presentation, that would be great. Thank you very much. So now, Debbie, are you ready to move ahead with this section?
Yes,
okay,
I'm
great.
ready.
Take it away, Debbie. Go ahead.
Okay. My experience with coaching, I first started out coaching as an area governor. I tried to coach the downtown club, and the downtown club was at the Eaton building in downtown Cleveland. I was their coach for 2 years and was not successful. And I couldn't figure out why. So what I did was I researched, and I researched the website. I talked to people that were coaches, and I realized that just showing up is not going to work. And just doing it just doesn't work. So I started thinking about all of the things that would make a club not successful. And I created what I call an assessment and a coach contract. And the assessment part of it, which I can definitely, Vicki can share with everyone afterwards, is we sit down with the officers and or the club, whomever's there, and do an assessment. First of all, about the club officers. Are all the officer roles filled? When was the last time they had a meeting? When was the last time they attended training? Those are all things, if you have a good cohesive group of officers, usually the rest falls into place. The next, let's take a look at the club membership roster. You pull down the club membership roster and who's regularly attending and who's not. And maybe you can contact some of those that are no longer active and find out why. Why did they stop coming? What was the reason? Because you might find out something. The next thing I looked at was meeting location. Is it easy to find? Is it easy for guests to find? Is there foot traffic? Does it feel safe? Is the parking lot lit? All of those kind of things that might deter people before they even get in the door. The next item I looked at was meeting and date time. Is this really the best time of the week? Are there other clubs meeting at this time? And is this the best location is it the location close to groups of people that would be meeting at this time? The next item on my list was club climate. When you attend as a club coach, what was the meeting quality? Were the evaluations good? Was the atmosphere friendly? How do members feel about their club? Ask to contact former members, why did they leave? Club training. When was the last time they did Moments of Truth? Now, Heather talked about Moments of Truth, and Moments of Truth is very powerful when it's done. And then also about the Distinguished Club Program. And the last item I looked at was current club marketing. What is the club doing to market themselves? When was the last time they had a successful membership drive? So that's all of the assessment part that you, over a couple meetings or an officer meeting, you go through, and that helps you determine, is this club, are they willing to change? Do they even know what's wrong? Then the second part of this is the club coach contract. And according to the way I put it, and this does not necessarily mean that the club coach has to commit to this, but these are the things that I wrote down. The club coach commits to join the club, attend meetings regularly, attend the officer meetings, provide insight from the club assessment, support the club marketing efforts, assist in recruiting other Toastmasters to provide a full meeting for guests. No one wants to have go as a guest to a meeting with 4 people. If you have a club that is struggling with membership and you have an open house, you need to bring in other Toastmasters to fill the roles so that it is a full meeting. So when they walk in, they see that when you join this club, you're not going to have to do 2 or 3 roles. That's kind of scary. The other thing that the club coach will reach out to, and this shows how old this is, the area and division governors for club training, and then report progress to the district governor or the lieutenant governor of marketing. So I made this up back in 2012. The club commits to performing the club assessment, to be open to the insight from the club coach, be willing to make necessary changes to improve the meeting quality, listen to all the members' opinions, because sometimes you have those 1 or 2 very strong opinion people with opinions, and the other a couple that don't really, or just, hey, I don't care. As long as they do it, they can be in charge. I don't care. But you need to listen to all the members to find out how everyone feels about it. The club needs to commit to a marketing plan. They need to commit to attend officer training, and they need to commit to pursue club training. Along with that, then you would set with the officers goals. What will happen in the first 3 months? And then you have the signatures of the club officers and the coach. So it's basically a contract to hold everyone accountable for their role in this. Now, this seems a little strict or a little over the top, but when you actually set up expectations, people follow through. People get really excited. And then we talk about the progress of the goals, and then what are the next goals? So the whole worksheet or the assessment and the goals and the contract are 3 pages long. It can be as long as you want it to be, as long as it takes. The one thing that I realized, and I realized really quick up front, you may not be the right coach for that club, or that club might not be the right one for you. So you need to interview them, and you need to figure out what is their situation. Do they really want a coach? Do they want someone to give them the honest truth and provide them with a little guidance? Or do they just want someone to do the work for them? if they want someone to do the work for them, then you're going to do a lot of work and maybe not get a lot of progress. It needs to be a right fit, for not only for you, but for the club. That is all I have for the club coach contract. Are there any questions?
Debbie, this is Vicki. I have a question for you. How easy was it for, can you hear me, Debbie? Am I coming through?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Debbie, did you actually present the contract to club officers and have them sign it? Were they willing to sign it and commit?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. The PNC club, we became distinguished in 6 months. It was just a matter of getting the people together, and we did it over lunch, and we talked about all of the items, and they were really enthused. And these were people that really wanted to do this. They did an open house. They had 30 people there. Now, it took a little bit to get impressive. But they did get, like I said, within 6 months. Now, I gave them some of my education requirements because I joined the club in order for them to get distinguished, but they were well on their way by the time 6 months was over. They were speaking out of the manuals. There were 2 speakers every meeting. So you just have to get a jump start and get them started.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you very much. I personally find this concept of a contract, which is, by the way, not an official Toastmasters International document, Debbie, right? This is a document that you created for this special situation.
This is not official. There is something similar as far as an assessment that I did see out on international website 6 years ago when I was looking for this, but it wasn't, it didn't really ask all of the questions that I felt like you really need to ask.
Okay, very good. And I just want to remind everyone that Debbie said that this contract that she created is available, and I can send that to all of our meeting attendees later on today or tomorrow so that you can have that and take a look at it. And it might be something that will be handy for you in your coaching relationship. Well, great. Debbie, I'm sure people will have more questions as we go on, and I'd like to allow our other presenters some time now to speak. Thank you very much. And thank you, Heather. Was Ace able to join? I mean, Ace was Cervanti able to join. Sorry, Ace was Cervanti able to join.
I believe Cervanti's on, but is currently muted.
Okay. We're
all right.
all having a little bit of technical. Oh, there she is. Okay, Ace, would you mind going back to Cervanti's slides? Cervanti is going to talk to us about having a customer focus when we are club coaches. Take it away, Cervanti.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Vicki. Hello, everyone. My name is Cervanti. I currently serve as the Central Division Director. And am I able to move the slides myself?
You'll have to let me know.
Oh, okay, okay. So I am coming at this from the customer, that is our regular Toastmaster member perspective. And I have coached one club officially and a couple of clubs unofficially, but the one club I coached, I went in knowing very little, and all I knew was Dave Wiley was a member of that club, and I kind of counted on him to help me out. But the approach I took is from a very human, very member-centric perspective. So for me, as a lean coach at work and as a person who looks at everything from what's the value and who is asking for that value, right? So I tend to look at everything from who is our customer and what is that thing of value that they care for. So there is something that they come here to the club for. And when we go out to a club knowing that they need help, I think it would behoove us and it would contribute to our success if we got that customer to buy into why we are there. And if you move on to the next slide, Ace, for me. This is what I think we need to do. At least this was the approach I think worked for me. So I'd like to share it that way. And If you've noticed at the very bottom, I said, inspire, don't instruct. So when we are coming from the outside in, there is always this risk of people looking at us like, oh, she's bringing something new, or she's bringing an instruction that she thinks that we may or may not know. Will it work for us? There is a lot of trepidation and doubt. And to establish that trust, I think it is important for us to go to the members and say that I think you want to get things right. I know you have been putting in hard work, and this applies to regular members as well as officers. So I went in with the affirmation that, hey, I know you're trying to get things right. Let me take some time to understand what it's that you're doing, and let us look at together, let's look at what's preventing us from getting things right. So I went in from that perspective. So I'm very, very fond of acronyms. If you know me, you know that. So this is DING, D-I-N-G. It's just easy for me to remember, and I thought I'd put it in that format so you could take away something from this. So going in, I dignified members by affirming their efforts. That means I told them, I know you want to get it right, and I'm sure there is something that's preventing them from getting things right. And I listened in to part of Debbie's presentation. Sorry, I was late. And Debbie's contract has all the nuts and bolts, right? So we know what needs to be done. We know what assessments we need to take and how we need to guide through. So knowing that we have tools on hand, if you took the contract and you went in and made the members and the officers part of that process, I think our chances of success are that much increased. So the next thing is inspire them to own and sustain. So you and I can go in as coaches, but unless we equip, empower, and enable them to hold their success and make sure that that can happen month after month, year after year, I don't think we will be successful as coaches. So what worked for me is to invite each and every member to be part of that process. So I am here to help. I'm here to inspire this change and improvement in that club, and let's collaborate at every step. And that's the approach that I took. And then guarantee support. Sometimes when we go as coaches, I know with Good Morning Toastmasters, the club that I had coached, I went in and I took my time understanding them, inviting them to participate in the process. And in the next slide, I'll go after I go through this last bullet point, is how I took the time to observe them and then move on with the process of actually creating a plan. So when we guarantee that support, what we are telling them is that us as coaches and the district is there to help. So in short, if we give them credit, if we inspire them to own their success and guarantee that we will be there to support them as they put their plan into action, that kind of gets them to that point where they feel secure enough to be part of the process and start that little first step towards improvement. Any questions on this approach, like looking at it from a human, from a customer perspective, making the customer the center of this success and plan? Okay. Ace, can we move to the next slide, please? And here, the creation of the action plan, again, there is an acronym for us to remember. It is OARS, O-A-R-N-S. So first and foremost, I attended at least 4 meetings without really proposing anything, because I wanted to understand what it is that the club had going for it or what its opportunities were. So I just listed what all came to my mind, and I took many notes as I coached Good Morning Toastmasters and some other clubs that I have observed more closely that needed help, but they didn't realize they need help. But there is this notion amongst that club is they are doing what they are doing and they're doing it well. And that goes back to the point I was making, is when we affirm that their actions are working and they have the best intentions and they're trying their best, it helps us too. So this observation part, I thought, is very critical, which came in very handy for me because there were many personality types. There were many cues that were nonverbal within the meeting. Some participate more, some participate less, and some members did not see eye to eye on some of the processes that were being followed. There were cultural differences between how they interpreted success or how they wanted to own their success. The leadership style, again, the officers and the members and their working together, team dynamics, how well the roles and responsibilities are understood by the officers and carried on and taken to the next step, and how the members receive that kind of instruction or help or support from the officers. And some of the meetings, I did notice that the meeting had objectives, but not all members were forthcoming with signing up for roles. So that was a very tangible need that I felt almost immediately, but I did not jump in. I did observe for 4 full weeks, and gave very small suggestions at the end of the meeting. One time I sat down with the VPE, and another time at the end of the meeting with the VP of membership, another time with the president, another time again with another officer. So I took my time to observe for most part, and in very small measure, deliver a little suggestion, one small suggestion at a time. And I did this only because this particular club had only 2 if I may say, youngsters. So the average age of the club was 50 plus, I would think. And they met first thing in the morning around 6:30, at 6:30 actually, and every Monday. So there were a lot of things that were putting the kind of pressure on the members to come first thing in the morning, to participate and to own their improvement and their success. After those 4 weeks, and this is contrary to having a contract and having a plan, and now that I looked at Debbie's, I asked her permission if I can use it for my future assessments and my future plans, because I think it's great to get in there, but not knowing, I went in, but I took my own approach. I was successful in making the club distinguished within 8 months, but then again, I went in from the human perspective, so I had a few things working for me, but this contract, in addition to my own approach, would, I think, make for the best recipe if we can play all of the good suggestions we are getting through our webinar today. And the next thing I did was assess. So diverse member goals. So each member had different goals. Some came in, actually all they wanted to do was enjoy the meeting. They loved coming to the meeting. The members were doing well, they were filling roles, they were doing speeches, but they were not submitting any awards to the district. So they were not getting credit for it. And they said, but we don't do it for awards. But then it was up to me then to tell them that, hey, maybe you and I don't do it for awards, but the district has no way of knowing how well you're doing. So I started motivating them that way. And then there are some exceptions to that. There are strengths and opportunities. And this is just a general assessment of what their real needs are and what their strengths and opportunities are. And this gives us a good measure for being realistic in creating a plan that will work for that club. So as coaches, we have all flexibility actually to be creative and create a plan that actually works for this particular club based on what it is that we've observed and the assessments that we've made. Once we come up with that plan, I think it's a great idea, and it actually a very critical piece is to regroup and review that action plan with the officers and then the members. And leaving that room for revisions, I made that bullet point here because it was very important for me now that I had a plan, I had made a plan, it was important for me to go back and revise it and review it with the officers and the members, because getting their buy-in is the most important thing, I thought. And assigning specific tasks to individuals, sometimes if we are speaking in generalities, members and officers may not understand exactly the guidance that we are giving them. So it's always good to be specific and say, okay, let's have a follow-up. This is the person, get agreement, and then move forward. And then that support again. Once they get to work, once we have the action plan and they get to work, we as coaches, at least I did that. I stayed on. I attended a meeting every Monday as much as I could for the entire year, actually. I became a member of that club, and I attended every meeting throughout the year. So that way, I was really there for them, showing support. I took on roles. I gave some speeches, but I was more observing and continuing to observe, assess, review, and support them. So it went in an iterative cycle. That's really what I had to share. And again, the my focus was who is our customer and what is it that they value, and do everything according to that understanding.
Well, thank you, Sravanti. I have a question for you. You said
Sure.
that you observed. You just came and did you quietly sit the first 4 meetings and observe? And then what happened at the 5th meeting? Did you tell them what your observations were, and what was their reaction?
Yes. I shared, so at the end of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th meeting also, I shared observations, but I just wanted to get a feel for how they would receive my feedback, right? So I made very small suggestions. Hey, why don't we have ballots, or do you give out ribbons, or it would be good to fill out roles ahead of time, and I see that this is happening or this isn't. Oh, it's very nice. I was complimentary at the same time making suggestions, but I did not have a plan for them. I said, I'm just going to observe. I'm going to be here. I did participate in table topics. One time I was a word master. And then I think by the time I was in a 3rd meeting, I took membership. So I kind of slowly got into the rhythm of things as far as the meetings and my observations were concerned. But at the end of 4 weeks is when I said, okay, these are my observations. Do you think this will help? And I shared my observations first with the officers, because I didn't want the members to be surprised as to why a coach was coming in and what she was trying to do, because the officers knew why I was coming in. So I shared it, and Dave was a huge help. Having Dave in there as my co-coach, and later on he was president. He was, I think, VPE at that time for that club. So that helped tremendously.
Very good. Thank you. Ace, are there any questions?
I think there is a question from Ines.
Yes, there's two.
Coach.
Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and read those, Sravanti, if you can see them?
So first question, it says, the question for Debbie, what would you consider are signs that club is expecting the coach to do all the work?
Okay.
This question was...
okay, so the question is, what would I consider are the signs that a club is expecting the coach to do all the work? When you go in and you ask them questions about what are they doing, what are their expectations? Like I said, I perform an interview. And what are their expectations? I ask them, what do they want me to do as a coach, and what are they willing to do as a club? It's kind of a really frank discussion. That way you can kind of get to the root of it, and that's when you can say, well, I will help you with this, I will assist you with this, I will fill your meetings with Toastmasters, I will, whatever you plan on committing to, you can commit to, but I just ask them up front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There is another question here. Does the coach have to join the club? Now, the answer to that is the coach does not have to join the club. Debbie, I heard in your contract you said that you do join the club. Is that correct?
That would be affirmative. And the reason why is, the reason why for me would be, if the club is willing to do the work, I'm willing to join the club and participate.
Correct.
But if they're expecting me to do all of the work, then maybe I'm not the right coach for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
there's
I'm
no
not going to
obligation for the club.
I'm not going to join the club just to get membership up so that they can hit their numbers. Mm-hmm. I'm going to join the club if they want me to participate with them.
Very good.
And I took a similar approach too, if I may answer this question, Vicki. I took a similar approach that Debbie took, but the 2 weeks I waited to see if the club would be accepting of me in any form, in any shape or form, right? So I just wanted to get a good gauge for where is this club going? What is their approach towards success or improvement? Are they even open to suggestions or feedback? So I waited a couple of weeks, and then in the 3rd week, I took membership. not to increase their membership count, because that would be the wrong thing to do. The reason I also joined the club is because I was working towards my DTM, and that gave me additional opportunity to give my speeches. So I did deliver quite a few speeches at that club first thing in the morning on Monday at 6:30. But it was a great experience, and the club also had exposure to someone from the outside delivering speeches. So that was a novelty for them, and they seemed to like that. They were used to their regular members, and someone coming from the outside and taking an opportunity to deliver a speech was something they actually welcomed. So that gave me the motivation to join the club and deliver more speeches, and it let me complete my ACG. So I used it both ways, to provide value to the club as well as to myself in completing my ACG.
Very good. All right, thank you for sharing that. Well, we do have one more speaker. We have our district director, Tim Judah, who is going to share with us how you can find the Spark member in the club. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Vicki. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. I was a club coach a few times in the past, probably 3 or 4 times, and some were extreme situations with only 3 or 4 members, and they were almost to the point, or actually they were to the point of deciding they were going to close the club. What Debbie and Srivanti shared already is that's very important, is to get the buy-in and also to do your observations. And the first thing I like to talk about is the initial feelings and expectations when you go into a club. There's a few scenarios. This isn't an exhaustive list by no means, but the main scenarios that you're going to walk into as a club coach is when you first walk in, you're welcome with open arms. And the club sees you as hope with your help. And this is the ideal situation because they all want you to help them, coach them. You're going to have a lot of assistance, and they're going to be very open to your suggestions. So that's the ideal situation going in as a coach. You already have the buy-in. Now you just have to sit down, like Debbie mentioned, go through a plan with them and help them get started. Another situation, and this also answers that question, a sign that a club is expecting the coach to do all the work. And when they answer a lot of your questions with, "We've tried everything." And when you hear "we've tried everything," there's a good chance they didn't try everything, but maybe it was the quality in which they carried out that activity. When you hear this, they are making it sound like they exhausted all their options. Now it's your turn to come in and see what you can do. So that's a good tip off that they're going to want you to do a lot of the legwork for them. They could be open to suggestions, but you will have to sit down and ask what they've tried and how they tried. If they had an open house, how did they market the open house? So you want to see what went wrong and maybe mention what they can improve on. Many times they're not willing to repeat an activity because it didn't work before. They don't see the point in it coming back. But there are opportunities to sit down, talk it out, and come up with a plan. The last one that you might come across, it's probably the one that is most uncomfortable, is I'll call it stranger danger. There was a miscommunication, and they maybe didn't request a coach, but there was word that they wanted a coach, so a coach was assigned. You go there, and they wonder why you're there. Who are you? Why are you trying to help our club right now? Maybe one person in the club requested a coach, but they didn't tip everyone off that a coach was coming. So there's a little bit of an uncomfortable situation. So those are the 3 main situations. Definitely you want the first one, where you're welcome with open arms to help. And now trying to find the spark. What does that mean? You're going to try to find member personalities. When you go into a situation, there's going to be a lot of different personalities and how you're being received in that club. The first one I would say is you walk into a situation when there's a few, I'll call them elders of the club, or someone who makes the decisions for everybody. Perhaps they found an opportunity where this is the right time to close the club. That's their strong opinion, and they're going to make everyone follow that opinion. It's someone who's perhaps been a club officer, president year after year, vice president, It's someone who develops a strong personality, and they pretty much make all the decisions for everyone. There's the second type of person is someone who's a longtime member, and they take pride in that club, and they want to see it succeed. And this is someone you definitely want to have as an ally. You want this person to answer some questions because they have a good understanding of the club, but also it's someone you can use to speak to the personalities that are giving you the most resistance, because they already have trust within that club. They're a longtime member, they understand the personalities involved, and they can give you a lot of good information. The last person is a newer member, or perhaps a member who's afraid to speak up, because they're maybe afraid of the veteran members, their strong personalities, so they sit there and they decided that whatever they decide, I guess that's what I'm stuck with, so they'll go along with it. If you find a member like this through your observations, I know Shivanti sits there and she said she does some observations. It's a good opportunity to see who's vocal and who's not. Take an opportunity after the meeting. Take an opportunity after the meeting to maybe have a one-on-one with this person. Maybe they can set up a time after the meeting to give you a phone call, and you can talk about it candidly with them and figure out what the real dynamic of the club is. You know, why did they join? How do they feel the club's doing? Is there an opportunity to save the club? What's their intuition on that? So I think this is a person who has an opportunity to be a spark, because if you get them to speak up, then maybe the other members will listen and follow along. For the most part, when you go to coach a club, you're going to find that most of the members are just burnt out. They've been repeatedly going into officer roles, their marketing campaigns and their activities aren't working, and it's become a burden to them. So they're looking for help. Maybe they've decided that this is our last chance. If it doesn't work, we're going to fold the club. I would like to share one instance. When I was a club coach, I was actually an area governor at the time. They call it now it's area director. And funny, Shivanti is the Good Morning Toastmasters Club, but this was probably back in 2005, which goes to show you also that a club, even after you save them as a coach, if they don't do continuous membership building, they can fall into that same rut, and it's cyclical, and they might need a club coach later on in the cycle of the club. But on one of my area visits, I went to the meeting, and only 2 people showed up. They sat across the table from me. They didn't bother setting up the meeting, and they just looked at me and said, "Tim, we decided next week we're going to close the club." Well, I happened to do some pre-work, and I knew that they had a good nucleus of members. They had a lot of veteran members. Even though they only had 5 members, they were long-term members. So I knew there was a chance to take this nucleus and build from there. They didn't want to go ahead and build the club up, but I asked them, if you can get all your members, or who are the other members in your club, and I noticed one name, so I called the person who I thought could help in the situation. And I called her and asked if they can get all the members at the next meeting. And this person was the veteran member who was a founding member, and she wanted the club to continue. So I knew I could work with this person. They were an ally for me as a club coach. She did contact all the members, and at the next meeting, they all showed up, and we had a conversation. I was very positive. I think that's very important as a club coach, is to be positive and supportive for them, where you give them your best promise that you're going to help them continue. And having that person who's the ally, they already have the communication stream open with the rest of the members. That was the person I wanted to talk to. The initial gentleman who wanted to fold the club, I still respected their observations, their comments, but I was mainly going to work with the person who's more receptive and had the less resistance in keeping the club open. Because that's the main goal, is to keep the club open. So you want to work with a person who's already on board. And that's one person who could be a spark, because they can spark interest for the other members to get them active again, and maybe give them a ray of hope, where at the next meeting we're going to have some guest speakers. We can have, obviously the club coach puts another person in a seat to fill a role, and the club coach can actually bring guests from their clubs, surrounding clubs, attend and fill seats as well. It's amazing that just that little act, how it can change the dynamic of a club, because all the roles are filled. No longer are they taking 2 or 3 roles, and it gives them just a little bit of time to breathe, a bit of fresh air. They hear someone else speak. You know, they don't have to do extended table topics the whole meeting, so it really helps them out in that aspect of it. Now, the person I'm really looking for is the spark, is that next guest that walks through the door. As Debbie said, you want to definitely go over the moments of truth with them, because if you're trying to accept guests into a club and you're not running as an efficient Toastmasters club and you're not having speakers, that means you're not having evaluations. So if you do have a guest, they're missing 2/3 of the meeting. They're seeing table topics. Is that enough to get someone to join? Maybe, but for the most part, they're thinking that's a Toastmasters meeting, and it might not be enough to get them to join. So you want to definitely try to get those prospects and turn them into members. That person provides the spark. In Good Morning Toastmasters, the first meeting, 2 people showed up. They actually had to participate in the meeting. They had to take the timing role, and one of them did the word of the day, and they enjoyed it, actually. You'll find that some people actually like to have a small audience their first time through as a guest. They had a lot of anxiety showing up, thinking it would be a big room of people, and some of them are relieved to see a small group. So don't discount the fact that even if you only have 2 or 3, 4 members show up at a meeting when you have a guest, that it's not going to work for the best sometimes. Sometimes it actually does work out. In this case, they did join, and it started the snowball effect. You had someone who was energetic. This gave the current members who were in that club a little added boost because they now have a new member to cater to. They were participating, and it just gets everyone excited again. One thing I would like to share about the Good Morning Toastmasters Club, the time I coached, some of the members that came through that club, Dave Wiley, Oakland Lewis, Donna Commodore actually helped me coach the club. But just think if that club folded, Dave Wiley, who's now running for international director, I mean, that person came through that club because it stayed open. And that's one of the things I love about Toastmasters is that next guest, you can really change their lives. And Oakland Lewis became an area director later on. So they were developing leaders in that club, even though they're 1 week away from folding the club. So it's very important that we do our best to keep these clubs open, because you're not sure who that next member is going to be. So you want to find the spark. There's actually 2 sparks. Someone in the club who really wants the club to stay open, that's the person you want to latch on to and work with to get the rest of the members on board. And then that new, fresh member who's going to come to that meeting, turn everyone's personalities around, how they react to their club, and get it going again. So those are the 2 main people I'm speaking about. And it's amazing how, with a fresh attitude, going through the moments of truth, and just accepting the guests as they come through so they can see a true Toastmasters meeting, how much of a difference that makes. I'll take any questions as well.
Tim, I really like your suggestion to bring your Toastmasters friends from other clubs into that coached club to boost attendance at the meeting. I mean, those aren't people who are going to join that club, but you said that they can really change the atmosphere and can get people motivated and excited. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And it gives them, you know, if they're having a hard time filling, especially speaker roles, you know, if someone wants to do their icebreaker, maybe someone's trying to accelerate their path through the communications manuals, it gives them another opportunity to speak as well.
All right. So are there any other questions? We just have a few minutes left here.
While we're waiting for questions, I have a couple of comments.
Go ahead, Heather.
Okay. So when I went in as area governor, I was a Toastmaster of less than a year. I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I was too new to be really aware of all the pitfalls and attitudes and all of that. In other words, I was very innocent, and I thought, oh yeah, I can do this. And the other thing is that I was really honored that they would ask me, because here I was going in for the first time as area governor, and they're saying, we need help. Can you help us? And they were so humble, and they wanted to work with me, and they were fun and at the same time hardworking. So I did some of what Tim did. I actually asked some of my club members, because I had belonged to 2 other clubs, and I got some of my club members to come in and help with the roles. But then the important thing was that we reached back out to some of the members who had not been attending, and some of their membership had lapsed, and some of them actually rejoined. So that helped a lot. But sometimes when you don't know what you don't know, sometimes you do things and you surprise yourself, because when I went in, I had no idea of, okay, I need to get them distinguished within 6 months, so I'm going to do this, do that. All I knew is that my one tool was moments of truth. So from that time on, that's why I call it Recipe for Success, because we followed it and we did what we needed to.
Very good. Yeah, that Moments of Truth, Moments of Truth is from the, I want to say, Successful Club series. If those of you attending are not familiar with it, you want to go into Toastmasters.org, and in the search bar put Moments of Truth. It's one of those canned presentations. You can use it to get credit toward your Advanced Leader Bronze Award. And it's a pretty intense presentation that it's more of a workshop that you do interactively with the club members. And it can really open the eyes of the members to what's going on in the club.
I think I have another suggestion as well.
Okay.
If any club officer goes into Club Central, and I didn't know how far back this list, we had our club officer meeting today, and we looked at this list. If you go into Club Central, if you're a club officer, and the section under Club Administration, there's a section called Administrative Reports. If you click on Administrative Reports, in the drop-down list, there's a series of reports: charter members, past and present members, past and present club officers, and past and present educational awards. If you click on past and present members, this gives you an extensive list of all your past alumni that you can, and a lot of them have email addresses too, and it tells you what was their beginning date they joined and what was their end date. Some of these on our list go back to 1988.
Right.
And it has a lot of email addresses too. So don't be afraid to, maybe some of these email addresses aren't valid anymore, but it's worth taking a shot to send an email to invite some of the alumni back, let them know about Pathways and how much the program's changed. So it's just another opportunity to invite more guests. And it's a list that's already made for you. You just have to send an email out.
Absolutely, and that was only done recently. And I discovered it a few weeks ago and shared it with my district, and they were on cloud 9 because finally we don't have to contact TI and say, can you send us a list?
Yeah.
That is an excellent tip, Tim. That is really, really excellent. And now with Pathways rolled out in District 10, you've got some new, a new incentive to bring former members back.
Yep.
So that's a great tip. Folks, we are out of time here. I know that there are probably a few more questions in the queue, but I want to respect your time. It's late for us here in the evening. The presentation will shortly be posted on the district's YouTube channel, and I'm not sure if we'll have another way of accessing it, but we'll get the word out to you. Debbie and I will work together to get you the contract that she discussed earlier in the presentation. I want to say thank you to all of our presenters. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your suggestions with the attendees. Thank you to the attendees. You're on this call because you care about your club. And thank you, ACE, for your support in presenting this session tonight. So thank you, everyone. We'll be in touch soon. And best wishes with coaching your clubs.
Thank you, Vicki, for putting this together.
Vicki.
Good night. Bye-bye.